everyone. Welcome to Creative Block. I'm your host, V.
And I am your host, Sean Glaze, aka Lord Spew. That's my alter ego on the internet. We interview people in creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter and Instagram if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
Today we have with us Brie Henderson. I would love to ask you a little bit about your experience with Creative Block. That's the name of the show.
I have no experience with the show. Like my own creative block and like how I get.
Yeah, how do you deal with Creative Block, and maybe what does Creative Block look like for you?
Oh.
And maybe what are some techniques? What are the life hacks behind how you combat it in this warfare that we wage against our own minds?
Well, I will start by saying, do not do as I say, and absolutely do not do as I do. When I teach my students, I try to be an example of like, I don't want you to be like me. Instead,
your advice is
like,
draw porn. Draw porn.
Draw porn. Let's go. Where the dick's at? I pull them out.
Not literally not the class.
Not
We're
in
talking
the
about
class.
the drawing them, pull them out of the page.
I mean, you
pulling
can do
them
it
out
in a
of the
class if
pants.
it's a nude figure drawing class, but whatever, we don't talk
That's
about
true.
that.
That's true.
Have you ever been in a life drawing class where like the model wasn't entirely nude, where they were like,
yeah, absolutely. I've done in school. We did all of that. We did nude figure drawings all the way from freshman year all the way up to like advanced clothed figure drawing 3 with our like the director of our department in our last year. But you have to be good. You have to like get into that class, and I got into that class because I was good.
Yes, we love to hear it.
Such a shit. But actually,
what do you do when you don't feel good?
Yeah.
When you don't.
when I'm struggling with a creative block, well, I'll be really candid about my mental health. I am an artist with bipolar 2, and I started this pandemic pre-medicated, and so BP2 comes with a lot of highs, which we call hypomania. And during that time, which, our highs and lows last about, a couple of weeks at a time, depending on the individual or whatever. But there's a high that you ride that will make you feel like you can survive getting shot by a bullet. And I wish that was hyperbole, but it's not, and so that sort of mindset is what led me to like working 3 films at a time because COVID said I could, because my mental health said that I could. And so at that time I had no artist block, I had no creative block, I was just going and going. And so when the creative block does hit, it's like a whole black market crash. It's the worst feeling in the world when I have nothing to give. I can't draw, I can barely critique. It's not fun. Like this past probably since just after Lightbox, I haven't really drawn very much of anything. You scroll through my Twitter, you don't see very much art, and that's been me quite literally having a creative block. And my therapist has really put in a lot of effort in changing my mindset about like that uselessness that you feel when you can't draw, or that lack of the juggernaut in you that makes you stay up all night, that sort of atrocious mindset that you had all throughout school, right? That got you to the top of your class, and you drag that with you into the industry. Obviously it gets you work, obviously it gets you known, but when that stops, or when you have to stop, then what do you have? It feels like you have nothing. And it's an abysmal feeling. You feel useless, actually.
Like tying your self-worth to your work.
Absolutely. Yeah. I had this mindset all throughout school that if I slept, I was wasting time. If I slept, I was not working. If I slept, I was not learning. And so I already have insomnia due to like my just the whole overwhelmingness of my mental the bigness of my brain does not allow me to sleep. And, and so I would use that like really to my advantage, and I would never sleep, and instead I would just work and draw and work, and there needs to be a limit. You know, you have to stop, and you
Mhm.
have to allow yourself, honestly, you have to allow yourself to have creative block. You got to be okay with that, because if you don't, and you're not familiar with having creative block, that shit will blow up in your face, and
Mm.
you won't know what to do with it, and it'll ruin you, you know. So I
Mm.
try to, like, for anyone that I talk to about, you know, not being able to pull art out of their ass or whatever, it's just like, dude, that's fine. Do something else then. You know? Like I struggle with being able to keep hobbies. I have maybe about 100 or so plants. That's no longer a hobby, that's become a lifestyle. And for a long time that was all I had. Due to the hypomania, I would be able to pick up a hobby for 2 weeks and then lose interest in it completely. So I would
Mm.
buy, like, hypothetically. Why are this is becoming a therapy talk, but it all ties into like how I view my art.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, but art is
hypothetically,
therapy for a lot of people, for
it
a lot of us
is.
that do it, you know?
I would buy I would get really invested in macrame, and I would drop like $500 on macrame shit from
Oh my God.
Mhm.
just everything, and then never touch it. That's a mix of the BP2, the hypomania, and that need and desire to find something outside of drawing that'll keep me creative. And now in the present time, I have sewing. Like I've always been sewing. That's, you know, I'm a costume designer. And so I've been sewing even more as of late, and that's been awesome. And I don't know, getting through creative block is fucking almost impossible. Yeah, that's my take on it. It sucks,
Yeah.
but
But it does, you do say though
mm,
that a big
mm,
part for you is to like kind of have this let it happen, right? You're like, let it
mm,
happen kind of thing. And being okay with the fact that it's gonna happen, but it's not the end of the world. Eventually it will.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
And
gonna happen whether you like it or not. We all go through it. And I think what is extraordinarily important to remember, extremely? Yes.
mhm.
It's very important to remember that just because you're going through creative block, you need to remember you're not alone. Your best friend is probably also going through creative block. Your director is probably going through creative block. You know, it's a universal thing that it needs to be more universally accepted as well. Like, it needs to be seen as, oh crap, I'm burning out. Oh crap, I am struggling to, get through
Mhm.
this assignment. Yeah, that's fine. Crawl into bed, take a nap. Gosh, that's
What
deep.
happens when you are on a project or a deadline and
Mm.
you are in one of these states and you know that, by, whatever, by Friday or whatever, you need to have this design in? What is that switch, or what do you have to do in yourself to change the way you think in order to get yourself in that seat and
Mm.
make those decisions and stick to them,
Mm.
to get that design done?
I had a an amazing line producer tell me once, and I've had a couple actually tell me once, that they don't care when you get the work done, so long as you get it done. So long as you get it done within the time constraints that you get it done, like that your assignments in. They don't care how long it takes you, just get it done. And in all honesty, I would get an assignment and I would put it off. Like, if I was really stumped, I would put that shit off until the night of. And as a habit I have from school, but I thrive in that like tight, insane deadline that I've given myself for no reason other than I can't really work. But my therapist has asked me that question a lot too. How do I get through the workday with, the ups and downs of my mental health? And I just do. You just do because you have to.
Panic is a
Definitely.
crazy, it's like a
Yeah.
motivating drug that
It
you inject into your
is.
brain. It's like that like adrenaline shot to the heart, but it's just like that feeling
God.
of dread, like
Straight to the
But use
heart.
with caution.
Or
Only
you'll get
only break the glass
fired.
in case of emergency.
Exactly. Yes. And then obviously, there's also that thought of, well, could I have handed in more work, or could I have handed in better work had I done this beforehand, or had I, really put the time into it that I should have. And you know what? Yes, no, you never know, but you did it.
Yeah.
I think that one of the marks of being a professional artist is getting to the point where the work that you turn in when you're in a distressed, half awake, um,
Stupor.
depressed state
Yeah.
is still good enough to
Mm-hmm.
meet the standard. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, you're going to have the stuff that's like, this exceeds all expectations, gold
Yeah.
star. You're not
Yeah.
getting paid any extra, but we're all really proud of you. But I feel like that's what we're all like building up as far as like when we train all the time, when we draw all the time, we're building up that tolerance so that even when we're not that good, we're still pretty good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like that's the
Isn't that
key.
amazing?
That's something that's, I don't know for you guys, but that's something that's made me feel a lot better recently. I just realized
Mm.
that, like, because I've been drawing for so long, like, even a drawing that's kind of like now is pretty much what would have been one of my best drawings 10 years ago. So
Sure.
Yes.
yeah, it's like, okay, okay, still got this, it's fine.
That's a mood. Oh my God. You ever, so, speaking of 10 years ago, oh my God. So I haven't, like I said, this is the first time I've drawn digitally, probably since October. So first of all, thank you for shackling me to my chair to make me do this.
Of course.
Um, but I was gonna draw some, I was gonna draw some Last of Us fan art, tomorrow, so I'm excited about that. Mm-mm. But I think what's really funny is that Facebook helps us to revisit those art pieces that we did like 10 years ago or whatever. And I got one of those memories yesterday. It was it was Kenma from Haikyuu. Do you guys watch Haikyuu? The
Oh my
volleyball
god, I
anime?
love Haikyuu.
I
Yes,
love
yes.
Haikyuu. It was so
Oh my
gay.
god, dude.
It's so fucking gay.
Oh my god.
And I drew Kenma in a like a underbust corset, and it popped up, and I was looking at it. I was like, "Damn, I really want to redraw this," and that felt really good. Like looking at your old work and knowing like what you can bust out now, in a fraction of the time in
Yeah.
which you busted something out 10 years ago. It would take me days to even just line
For sure.
something.
Do you
Isn't
guys
that
ever
crazy?
have, like, it's funny because when I look at the art that I used to do when I was in college, it was very
Mhm.
like illustration-y, and my line wasn't as confident as now because after 10
Mhm.
years in the industry, you have to draw faster, so your lines are more tight, da da da.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could draw with this kind of like trembly, weird, kind of
Hmm.
like, more illustrative kind of line again. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at your old art and saw a quality to it that you feel like maybe not that you have lost, but that isn't part of your style right now anymore.
How does that make you feel when you see that, though? How does that make you guys feel?
I feel like every single line that I was drawing was imbued with fear, with
Mm.
what like this fear of like, um, there was this like weight to
Mm.
everything that I drew back then, where like everything needs to be a portfolio piece, everything needs to
Gosh.
impress somebody,
Yes.
and I don't care about impressing
Yes.
somebody as much anymore, and it
Absolutely.
makes me fly like the wind.
Yeah.
My hand is like a wind,
Fly like a
free.
bird, I wanna fly away.
That's
Yeah.
so true. I don't know. When I see these old pieces, I'm just like, it actually kind of inspires me again sometimes. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. These are the kind of like codes that I would use. I just think it's like I just think it's nice also to look at the merits of the old art. like
Yeah.
looking at like how much you've evolved, but also like, hey, that wasn't so bad, or like that
Yeah.
was actually pretty cool. I don't know. What about you,
Yeah.
Brie?
I hate looking at my old art.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever tried? Have you ever tried redrawing a super old piece with like how you would
Yes,
imagine it now? That's
I
an interesting
have.
experiment.
I can I import a photo on here?
Yes, that
I'm gonna
little on the
I'm
left,
gonna
the
add a
little JPEG
yeah, I'm
icon.
gonna add an image because I want to show you guys something.
Yes.
So one of the one of the stories that I've been pitching, I've been working on for, I would say, yeah, maybe about 10, 11 years now. And I had this character that I've been drawing for that length of time and always redesigning her as I got older or as I, would change her storyline up and such. And I put her in a row from when I first drew her in every single iteration of her up until
Whoa.
last year. I'm gonna try to find that so I can post that in the thingamajigger so you guys can see what that looks like. But
Dude, that's awesome.
yeah, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, let me see. I don't know if that'll answer that question, but oh wait, here it is. I'm like a little gremlin when I get excited.
I love
Oh
that.
wait, how do I bring this to the front?
You know what? Grab that and let's go to page 2 so we can have a better we can see it better on the screen. For
wait,
whoever's listening on Spotify or iTunes, I guess you have to watch the YouTube video now.
Just imagine it. Just imagine
Just
it,
imagine
and what
it.
we're gonna paint with words. What you should imagine.
And then a couple of months ago, I even redrew the original character with the newer version of her so that they were standing next to each other looking like super cute. But
This is so
you can
Whoa,
see
this
that's
is
the
really
progression.
developed.
Yeah.
Like, in a long ways.
I
Thank
love
you.
that because so Bree's showing us an evolution of her main character, and in 2016 it's very cartoony, and then in 2020 it's a lot more like semi realistic. So it's a really cool evolution.
Thank you. You can see, in stuff like this, you can see what you were inspired by at that time. You can see the shows
Yeah.
that you loved to watch at that time coming through your work. And it's some, this is not at all part of our conversation, but this makes me think of when you're a lot younger and you're trying to find your style
Yeah.
and how much energy and heartache we put into trying to find what that could even mean for us. And I think something that I try to tell my students or anyone I'm giving portfolio reviews to or what have you, don't think about style when you're still worrying about your fundamentals. Like your style
Yes.
will come later. Just be inspired by whatever you see around you, and it's a bit of that, and drawing those bones and those muscles and things like that as if you were, in school or what have you. Those don't need style. That just needs practicality and objectivity. Like, is this right? And then everything else will come far after. You guys are so sweet. You're drawing my babies.
We're drawing fan art. You had the opposite evolution from me. I started more realistically, and and then I worked towards cartoony, and
That's
I had
what
to
I did. Yeah.
I was unlearning. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Wait, but tell me about yours. Yeah.
no. So I started out drawing more realistically, and I had come from like a fine art painting background, and it was actually like it was interesting, like unlearning a bunch of rules, like learning what rules to unlearn when. But it's interesting seeing your progression from going from a super cartoony stylized form to a form that is more influenced by figure drawing and just it's a more detailed style.
I can. That is wow. I love you and I want to hug you, first of all. Third of all, we're gonna be friends. Thank you. So I also started out as a fine art, in a fine art background. initially I started out as a fashion design student. And I did that for several years, but I went to a fine art high school.
Mm.
And when I left the fashion design department, I moved into visual development, which had us do, heads and hands, figure drawing, clothed and nude. We did crochet, which is a class of modeling out on like a 33 and a half inch. Academy of Art students, you'd know what I'm talking about. It's a like a 33 and a half inch clay model, and half of it is the musculature system and the other half is the bone system, and it's all math, and I failed it the first time. I hated that class.
Wow, that's
uh
I didn't realize. Yeah, it's like a super anatomy plus plus
yep,
plus class.
yeah,
That's
yeah, fucking
wow.
Whoa.
hated that class. But it came with a lot of unlearning. You're completely right about that, shot. It's just it back then in 2016, I wanted to work for Cartoon Network. That was my
Mm.
dream job. I didn't want to work in 3D animation. I didn't want the style that I work in now, this 2020, plus style. I didn't want any of that. The school that I'd gone to was very 3D feature film forward. This is pre
Mhm.
Netflix.
Hmm.
Mhm.
This was still back when Pixar and Disney were the biggest boys in town, and you're playing with the big boys now. God, love Prince Valiant. Anyway, so so I had to fight for, like, or at least it felt like it, fighting for wanting to work in 2D animation and wanting to work at, Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon or whatever.
Mhm.
And but now looking at the 2016 style, I can't go back to that, which is the hardest part. Like, redrawing my character in that style was so difficult for me because it was just like this. It's like looking at Adventure Time. It looks easy, but it's not. You still gotta
Mm.
know your
Dude,
bones.
it's hard. It's hard
It's
because
so
you're not
hard.
Yes.
like I feel like sometimes for more realistic styles, it's almost like we can design the face, we can design the clothes in a special way, but then I feel like I sort of go on autopilot, and I'm drawing what a body normally looks like in my head. But I feel like with more simplified or abstract styles, every piece of it is a design choice and a shape choice that is uh, different from what you'd see as a standard, like, sort of default, person that you're looking at. And so how you want to represent, um like, how their legs look, or how a thing overlaps another thing, or a pattern on a clothing, it's a deliberate decision to abstract something.
Mm.
um yeah, it's just it's a different way of thinking about and representing
Yeah.
an idea. And yeah, they're hard things that sometimes aren't always it. I don't want to say they're not compatible. They're hard to integrate. They could, because there's clashing things. Like when I draw backgrounds
Mhm.
in a certain cartoony style, I have to say to myself, like, I'm forgetting. I have to forget about the the perspective in this
Yeah.
shot. This
Yeah.
shot is warped,
Yes.
or this shot doesn't have, the sidewalk, instead of all going back to the horizon line. We need it to be a pan that continues to the right, so we need to have all the lines going exactly the same way, uh, parallel. And
Mm.
that doesn't work in perspective, but design wise it will. And I have a feeling like, a show that I believe we have in common that we have both worked on is Clone High. Um, and that's the hard. I think the hardest part about that show is everything is a design choice and a shape choice,
Yes.
It is.
Mhm.
and figuring out how to lay out those backgrounds, and what's in the foreground, what is in the space cluttering around your character, what are the main shapes. That it's hard.
I loved
It's a
working on
difficult
Clone
show.
High. That was a blast to help out on. I was on there for a super short stint, just helping out on like one or two characters, but it was. Very, very lovely. Like just that. Before that, all of the films that I worked on were, almost these hyper stylistic, realistic, 3D designs as they are. And then I was, slapped onto Clone High for like a week or two, maybe three. And it was
Mhm.
a complete style reversal. Almost, yeah, back to the 2016 kind of style that I had. And it was just like
Angular, pointy.
so
Mm.
angular. Complete,
Mhm.
oh my gosh. Oh my great googly moogly. There was a movie that I was on at Netflix. It was a gorgeous film that I was on that was unfortunately taken from the slate. And it was what we were calling it the epitome of design because it broke down it. Gosh, I don't even know how to explain it. It broke down character design and even just shape language all the way down to its bare bones to find out like the richest design elements in their simplest form. And I've never worked on a show or a film like that ever since. And it was the most awe-inspiring thing to like watch my art director, production designers really just be innovative. It's innovative when you pull away from these hyper realistic styles nowadays and you really dig into like what it means to really design something, especially
Mm.
when this film was told through the eyes of a child, right?
Mm.
So what can a world through a child's eyes look like? And why aren't we pushing that as much as we can? So that film did, and it's a crime that it was taken from the slate because it would have done what Spiderverse did. It would have knocked the industry off to a kilter in a different way of thinking, in my opinion.
Mm.
It really would have. Yeah,
That's a shame.
it is a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really interesting what you're talking about because when we had Chris Mitchell on the show, I forgot his episode number. He kind of talks about that when he was
Mm.
designing on Dexter's Lab and Summer Jack and all these shows that are like very highly designed. And
Mm.
it's true that like there's been this kind of like recent trend of having things more like volumetric and like realistic in space than before it was more a little bit of like a 2D kind of
Mm.
space or like way of designing.
Almost like
Mm.
UPA,
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
super
I
stylized,
loved
abstract
UPA.
environments.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Clone, like shows like Clone High, the film that I was talking about, they'll keep being made. They absolutely will be. I think the something that which is so funny to me that I feel like we're all so loud about is this return to the classics, the return to the 2D animation, which we've been trying to get back to without actually getting back to it. Like using Blender, using grease paint, using 2D servicing styles for 3D animation. It's like we're putting in more work than we should be instead of just doing it. What the
I
hell at
definitely
this
don't miss
point?
storyboarding on paper though, because that was hard. That was
Yeah.
hard. Going back to the
Mm,
Clone High thing, I
mm,
think that the hardest thing about working on Clone High in my experience was thinking about design and storyboards at the same time. Um,
mm,
because the storyboards also had to look on model and the way that they moved
mm,
also had to be a designy angular thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like there are loopy weird ways of movement that are anti that show.
mm, mm,
And it's weird to think about all those things at once. And I think at some point I got to a point on the show where I was like, I think I'm as good as I'm gonna get at drawing this style, and my brain doesn't really think this way. And I know that I think that it takes me 2 times as long as other people that are good at drawing in this style to draw in this style.
mm.
And maybe this style just is harder for me and it isn't for me. But like I worked on like 5 or 6 episodes or something like that. Um And then I was like, I'm gonna move on because this is really hard. It was hard on me, man. That show was
I've
hard
been
on
through
me.
that. I've been through that. There was one there was a studio there was a show that I had to take a huge step back from and remove myself from because it was at the crux of me realizing that my mental health was getting out of control and I needed a therapist. And like at that point I this was back when I was working on like several things at a time. And again, like, don't ever do that. Like, I had the audacity to work on two projects at Netflix while working on Spiderverse at the same time.
Oh
That's
Oh
not
no.
healthy.
wow.
That's
Yeah,
not
that's a
healthy.
lot. That's a
Don't
lot.
That's
ever
that's
do
when I've had
that.
my biggest breakdowns. We're working on
Yes,
multiple. Yeah,
yes.
dude, you can't.
But
It's too
the
much.
fucked up part is when you've got that juggernaut a style thinking mentality. That's the most normal thing to you, you know. And
How do
even
you turn down
now,
projects when you feel on top of the
how
world?
do
You
you
know.
turn? I have turned on projects before, which makes me feel when I do that, I always pass on a list of names that I think will be, you know, better represented for that project than I would because I can't give 100% or I'm just not interested. But you know, it's gosh, you gotta be nice to yourself in this industry because the industry's not nice to you.
Yeah.
Gotta be
People are nice, but it's true that like that like deadlines are deadlines. Projects
Yeah.
want work done, and at the end of the day, it is the product over the people. In some kind of a way. Like there's like a lot of ways that you can talk to production and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
it's true that at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you get hired to turn in some drawings.
Get hired to turn in drawings, which, you know,
So
saying it like that, you would think makes it easy. And
Mhm.
in some cases it is, you know, we love what we do. We do this for a reason. We put up with the shit show that the industry is for a reason. You know, there's something about it, about the jobs that we do, the assignments we take on that still make us put the light in our eyes and make us get really fucking
mhm,
excited,
mhm.
you
Mhm.
know. And but it's a job. It is work.
Mhm.
And we get paid to doodle. That's what I like to say. You know, even if it's an intense fucking Viz dev piece. Bitch, you're doodling. Stop it. You're cobbling colors together like a child in the best way possible.
I'm both expressing and also compromising bits of my soul and commercializing
Yes.
my art form in order to scrape by a living.
Honestly, I don't know if you guys want to talk about that, but like it's something that I've been kind of like, I don't know. I've had a week where I was just kind of like really feeling like, oh man, like, like I miss drawing for myself. I have like a lot of work to do right now, and I can't draw for myself because I have too much work. And then I'm like, what am I doing? Is drawing still fun? Do I still want to be doing this? Do you guys have like moments like that when you're like kind of like a little bit like it's not exactly creative block. It's more like, you're like, am I just did I self myself short? Just, working.
Just overdoing it on the work end versus the pleasure and
Yeah.
the reason why you got into it, that hobby. And
Yeah.
I've never had that feeling actually. What about you, Sean?
oh, so do you get a similar feeling doing your own work as you get when you design on other projects? Is that what you mean?
Like, wait. Are you saying are you saying do you feel like you've sold out kind of thing?
A little bit sometimes, not always, but
Mm.
sometimes. I don't know. Do you guys
Mm.
ever get that feeling?
Like the work that you're doing on the clock is digging into your personal expression art time where you're making your personal stuff and you feel like guilty about like you're shortchanging yourself by depriving yourself of some of that soul food that you need, like that
Yeah,
that personal me time.
Mm.
it's not so much the guilt, but it's more like, oh, like I had, all these hopes and dreams going in this, like, because it is, you guys were kind of saying that earlier, like, the reason why we draw is kind of also a way for us to express ourselves. And
Mhm.
sometimes when you take on multiple projects and they're all projects where you are carrying out somebody else's vision, you don't express yourself in the same way that you express yourself in your personal work. So then you have less time to be yourself or express yourself with this kind of special gift that is drawing, I guess.
I've never had that before, actually.
So you don't feel that.
No.
So just to check in with how you feel.
Yeah.
When do you feel a difference in when you're working on paid work versus when you're working on your personal work as far as amount of joy that you feel in the art or something?
I love it both. I love what I do. And I'll tell you why.
Man, you were so lucky. You were lucky. You were lucky. You were lucky. You were lucky to feel that way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
And I'll explain why too. There are not a lot of costume designers in this industry. I've moved from colorist to character to costume in a very short period of time, which that's perfect for me because I started as a fashion design major, so it's exactly what I've always wanted. And I'll tell you guys my villain origin story, later in this podcast, so you know how I got here. But I get such a joyride out of doing what I do because I get to teach my team how to think like a costume designer. I was on a film on Netflix called Steps. Beautiful film. My housemate is one of the storyboard artists. And I shout out to Alice, Helen, Jane. I love you all. Best director, best producers. And a lot of that, me being on there, was research and teaching
cool.
and obviously, costume designing. It was myself, Amanda Jolly as our character lead. I adore that woman.
Amanda's great. Yeah. She was in Spiderverse too.
Yes, she was.
Well.
Yeah. She is just special. Just beautiful soul. And then Tana Galovic, just my gosh, just the most and that's the thing too, is I feel so honored getting to work with some of the most beautiful people, and I think that also tops it off for me. But Amanda is the character designer, character design lead, and then Tenna shared the position of character and costume, and I just had costume. And so while Tenna was also teaching, she also had to focus a lot on character designing. And so with me strictly being costume, I got to do a lot of the bigger bulk of the research, which is exactly what I love to do as a fashion designer, as someone who wanted to work in the fashion design industry. And when I moved out to costume design, I wanted to work in the live action side of costume designing, not animation. And so my job is a gorgeous mix of all of the things that I've ever wanted to do. So I can't help but love it because in a way it's like I've made it for myself. Like I've created my position for myself.
Dude, that's so
really
awesome.
great.
And it seems like a rare position to be in. I
think there's only like 4 others that I know of.
Yeah. Marion that I interviewed on the podcast, she's doing that on the K-pop Demon Hunter movie. And it does sound like it's a very rare spot.
Oh,
yeah,
so
yeah,
tiny.
Yeah.
It's so tiny. There's oh gosh. I don't remember her name. She was like the main character costume designer over at Disney, and now she's over at Skydance. That's another phenomenal costume designer, like extraordinarily phenomenal in the animation industry. So we're a tiny group. One of my mentees is a costume designer in animation as well. And there needs to be more, but at the same time, I like that it's kind of small. Because I think there was a time where costume design didn't really exist as a title, and I don't think it still exists as a title because I think my title on Spiderverse is character design, but there was a time where the character designers were doing the costume design work, and so you get these bland, basic
Yes.
costume designs, right? And so now that you have actual people who are coming up as costume designers, we get to focus on that, while the character designers get to focus on character, and then you get the best of both worlds.
Man, you
Mm.
should teach a costume design for animated film class in like a university or something.
Oh, you have no
Like, I don't
idea
know if
how
that
bad I want to do
exists.
that. That doesn't
That would be
exist.
so sick.
You know how I can't tell you.
Make
how
some
bad
skill
I wanna
shares.
do that.
Make some, start the lane. Start the lane yourself.
You know they
Yeah.
hit me up. I said no to Skillshare because it's too complicated and I'm too dumb to do it. However, what I do is, and if I start teaching again, I would die to bring you guys on. So for a while, every couple of like every year, back when I was working through NEF, so like once a year, I would have students that I would, pull on to teach. I started out with 3 students, and then it moved to 5, and then it moved to 10. My last group was about 10, I think. And I would do it for free because I like to give back, and why monetize learning, in my opinion. And I would, create a whole curriculum. Like if I was going to teach you, I don't really like to teach fundamentals. I will if I have to, but I prefer to teach people who just need to take their work from here to here to get in. Like they're so close. And we just spend several months together having fun, getting to meet directors and producers and PAs and recruiters or whatever. And they get to learn everything. They get to learn how I work, which is, just one of billions of ways of working in this industry, but they get to see the importance of deep, respectful research throughout different cultures, throughout different time periods. They get to see the importance of studying cultures pre and post colonialism to see, how things have changed over the years. What can we touch as designers? What can't we touch as designers out of absolute respect and the audacity? And that's what I do, and I love passing that on to others. And I think if I were to hypothetically teach at a scholarly level, which is something I genuinely want to do. I've always wanted to teach to university students, but if I were to teach costume design for animation, I would teach people how to actually pattern make and how to actually sew if they don't know how to do that just yet. Because as a costume designer, you got to know how to do all of that. Especially if you're going to work in Marvelous Designer, you have no choice but to know how to do that, And yeah, I've had a question before from one of my producers on one of the last films that I was on when they brought me on for costume design. They asked me, will I be drawing seams and this and that and the other thing? And I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was a hilarious question because isn't that a given? But then I realized that is not a given, actually. And
well, yeah, because I
so,
feel like a lot of people who come from animation never go that deep. Like you said,
Yeah.
like patterns and seams. Like definitely, I don't know of many people who can do that. So it's really cool that you've learned how to sew. I always I always say that wrong, the word sew, right? And that you do it as a hobby. Like you posted a dress on Twitter that you're working on. That's really cool, and that
yeah.
you keep doing that.
Let's see. I'll drag a photo into the thing for people to see.
Yeah.
Oh snap!
I think this is also a great segue to talk about. We love to talk about different ways that people get into the animation industry from unorthodox roots.
Yes.
And I'd love to talk about your first experience going from fashion design to cartoons need fashion. Like how did you get your first animation job as a fashion consultant or designer, or how did that
So
come
it's villain
about?
origin story now, isn't it?
Yes. Hear it.
So hi, I'm Brie. So I graduated high school in 2011. and moved out to San Francisco to study fashion design. I did that for 3 years, and then I burnt out pretty severely. I wanted to be specifically on where I was trying to get to. I wanted to be a an haute couture designer, and I wanted to move to either France or London and apprentice at like a fashion house or some such. But I also wanted to just be a fashion illustrator, uh, like Erte or like Georges Barbier. Like I wanted to do stuff like that. That's where my home style lies, actually. And so with that burnout came Frozen. Frozen came out the same year that I was reconsidering what I wanted to do with my life. I was thinking about going to Cal Arts. I was thinking about so many different things. And I watched Frozen, fell in love, saw it 30 times in probably a single week because I pirated it, of course. And oh, the sound quality was atrocious. And you can't see anything because it's all pixels. But I remembered distinctly looking at it and going, holy shit, I can combine fashion with animation. Look at that dress, look at those outfits. And so I instantly changed my major to visual development. I thought I was going to have to change to illustration because I didn't know Viz Dev was a thing. And my school had just graduated its first Viz Dev department. At least that's what I was told from the advisor. And so yeah, I switched over, and I carried all of my fashion stuff with me. And so I wanted to be a character designer specifically. I had no idea, obviously, that costume design existed in the industry. I thought it was just all the character designs doing that. And my portfolio at that time was very fashion forward. Like as I was building it, it was very like elaborate things that the characters would wear because obviously I spent time researching those things. And so when I was a senior, I got into spring show because I was graduating, and I met quite a few recruiters from different studios and such. And the first studio to hire me straight out of school was Marvel. And it was a 40-hour contract. I forget those exist, but those exist. Those tiny contracts are a thing. Um, there's a 40-hour contract, and it wasn't anything crazy, but that was the start to like my working harder on my portfolio and really pressing for the fact that yeah, I want to be a character designer, even though I had like recruiters at that time tell me to go into background painting and background design because Viz Dev portfolios have everything. They are pure juggernauts, characters, color, story, everything. And so I was shuffling all of that out of my portfolio to keep just with the character stuff. And I think, honestly, I've told him this probably far too many times, or hopefully I have, but I owe a lot of where I am now to Everett Downing. He is like the best animation uncle I could have ever asked for. He had me come onto My Dad the Bounty Hunter as a fashion consultant, or a costume consultant to help him out with Dad, and that was dope. I got to hang out with some of the coolest fucking people, saw some of my friends, met some new friends, and from there moved on to almost strictly doing costume work. And I don't know if if I can owe all of that to Ev, or if it was just, the gods putting all of my cards in the same row. But that's how that all happened, and it just kind of continued from there. And I genuinely have no idea how people have figured me out as a costume designer, because my public portfolio is so old, and it's still costume and character based, but it's my my professional portfolio is delicious, if I'm telling you. But yeah, that's how that happened. It's kind of funny. I don't know. That's my villain origin story. It all changed because of Frozen.
I love that. I also wondered because when we go on your website, it says illustration. Have you done illustration work as well?
Professionally?
Yeah.
No, not professionally. No, that's the stuff that I do for myself.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the stuff that, like, if I like to do those big elaborate illustration pieces that are inspired by the golden age of illustration. Like I used to tell myself or my friends that I've been born way too late for the style of illustration that I actually like to draw in. So that's where all that's from. Yeah. But I don't know. If you guys, question for you guys actually, if you were not in the positions that you are now, what would you be doing instead?
I mean, so this is like like maybe like without like fine art off like art off the table
Art
completely.
off the table. Yeah.
I would probably be a touring and studio musician.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you do music. That's so cool.
Yeah, I don't right now. I don't play in bands that would make money. I just do it for fun. But
Mhm.
I probably would have gotten into recording, or maybe soundtrack composition, like stuff like that. Maybe.
Mm.
I feel like, I mean, I was gonna say comics, but that's kind of like really close to animation, I guess. But I don't know. I've been thinking about writing more recently, like writing books, because I feel like I don't know. I It's kind of funny. I think I started drawing because it was a way for me to tell stories because I wasn't as good with words than I was with pictures. But I feel like now
Mm.
I'm like, ooh, maybe I just need to get better with words so I can be like, I tell stories. You know?
Mhm, mhm.
um, yeah. Yeah. Or maybe I don't know. Sometimes I think maybe I would have gone into games or robotics fight because I did pretty well in math and physics. I
Mm.
was
Well,
decent.
like BattleBots, like those like robots that fight each other in the ring.
I've never really done some of those. I'm really into the robots like stuff more like Kismet, the robot Kismet. That was like a little face.
Actually, that's a question that I have for storyboard artists. I tend to see very similar draftsmanship. V, like, what's your take on different styles and boarding and things like that?
I think mm, wording is tough because you're not just draw that's something I can go on a huge rant about. But so there's the drawing aspect of it. Like there's the draftsmanship about like perspective and anatomy and the ability to mimic a style. But then you have to also be able to understand the style of cinematography. And if you're lucky, you have a director or a supervising director or a showrunner that's able to put it into words. For example, when I was on the Loud House, we had a style guide that was expressing how these are the kind of shots that we do. These are the way we cut. This is how we frame this. But sometimes you're not so lucky and you have a director who doesn't really know how to explain how they want to do their shots, and you have to be able to understand the style of cinematography, which sometimes can be like either they favor flat shots over depth or they favor um profiles over frontal, or maybe they favor a certain kind of composition. They like the 2/3, 1/3 better, or they like to have everything central, or like, sometimes they just want to frame on the faces all the time. Or sometimes they're like, actually, let's kind of let this sit in the wide for 4 seconds instead of, you know. So that's the kind of stuff that's I think is hard sometimes because
Mm-hmm.
you're adjusting so many things, and you're also adjusting the type of acting. Like one of the biggest notes that I get when I come on a new project all the time, they're like, you're too broad, too cartoony.
Mm, mm,
So
mm.
but it's not a bad note in the sense that it's easier for me to bring it back to make him.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to go from cartoony to realistic than from realistic to cartoony. Usually, I think it's easy.
Know the limit. It's good to
Yeah,
know the limits of like how far is too far.
yeah.
I think that there's a few different versions of a like the storyboarding style, and it all depends on what kind of show you go on. But there are certain styles of storyboarding where the main focus is the physicality, the form,
Yeah.
and the large body acting, and then
Mm.
if there's specific face acting, that's where you dial in on the face.
Mm.
um, then there's people that board very, very on model and very, very clean, and those are the people who they're saying basically in their boards to the designers, use this face. I drew this face.
Yeah.
Use this
Mhm.
face. And you'll see by comparison other board artist styles where basically there's just a cross drawn on the face to show the center of the face and maybe eyes. And in that case, that's sort of indicating, hey, we're using, pretty much the generic on model face right here. It's kind of the standard face. No crazy unique expression needs to be put on this face, or this is up to the designer. Have fun.
Mhm.
And I've worked in both experiences. I've worked on both types of projects where you have like for instance like Rise of TMNT, like
Mm.
a show like that is very it's about the action, the camera movement, the full bodies, coordinating all the action and where everyone is choreographing the fights, but they're not drawing all the characters' faces all the time. But
Mhm.
Mhm.
if you work
Mhm.
on
Mhm.
something like Regular Show or SpongeBob or Adventure Time,
Yeah.
the designs are often simple enough, and in addition to oftentimes the jokes are also relying on facial expressions or a very specific pose that like that where you're translating to the person that's going to be cleaning up that drawing, that like this drawing should look pretty close to this drawing in the final version. And I think that there's different arguments for like let the designers do their jobs. The storyboard artists have taken on too much
Too
responsibility
much
doing
work.
too many
Yeah.
of too many of the jobs, and
Mhm.
it should be spread out. But I think that there's been a little bit of a shift, where like it used to be that the designers were really like holding it down and the animators were really getting a lot of liberties, and now the storyboard artists are really the ones that are like they're they're trying to be held responsible for setting like all the tone and the design and the blah blah blah, like
Yeah.
uh
Mm.
to maybe to too much of an extent. Maybe that's not fair maybe it's not fair down the line to the other artists, but those are the two sort of variations, the two main variations that I see. And then there's the hey, we're basically storyboarding with a stamp tool or a puppet, and
Yeah.
it's basically like
It's
this
more
is
like
just gonna be, they're gonna plop a digital puppet down and like that's it.
yeah, that's more like
Hmm.
layout almost. Yeah, there's like storyboarding is like it's tough because there's so many levels to it.
Mhm.
Like you're not yeah, it's not just drawing anymore because now we're doing the layout. Before layout department was something else,
Right.
but now
I
since we're
find
doing
I live with two board artists, and as someone who's working towards being a director and wants to be quite versatile in the genres and themes that I direct, it's so fun just listening to board artists talk about just the way that they work and what they're used to and their experiences, and just like the layouts versus like drawing too much versus taking over the design aspect and things like that. And I am like, I'm doing my best to take all of it in so that like I know what would make for a healthy board team and what wouldn't, for like all, of
mm,
course, depending on like what the show or the film is too, because I can only imagine that changes, those needs change per show and style of film, right? I think.
Yeah,
yeah, it's very
I think
different between. feature in
Mhm.
TV, because I feel like
Yeah.
TV, I forgot if we said it in a previous episode, but TV, the boards are kind of like, they're a creative document, but they're also a little bit of a legal document, because this is a way for the overseas studio to be like, well, that's how it was in the boards. So
Right.
we're not going to do the
Mhm, mhm,
note
mhm.
unless you pay us more money.
Right.
So
Right.
in that sense, there's like more rating on the board artist, because it's kind of your fault if you didn't put the breakdown, which is
Sure, sure,
like,
yeah.
ugh.
So what happens when you don't have an in studio design or animation team to be able to
Yes.
say, here's the show model, we all know this, and we
Mhm.
trust you guys enough to take liberties and
Mm.
take something where there's no face drawn on it and draw the best face for that circumstance.
That's also a philosophy kind of thing, because I personally believe, that's my personal belief, but I believe you can write stuff on the boards instead of drawing it out. And then if it's written, it still works. Like you're
Right.
like, draw the
Yeah.
feet, walk across
Right.
the screen, and that will take you
Right.
3 seconds insteod of actually drawing the walk.
Can actually draw.
I usually write like really cool drawing here, and then I like a stick figure.
Just make it better.
I
Really
love
cool, hot, sexy action drawing here.
have these two people fighting, but then like looking at each other like they're friends, but then one kills the other. But like no specifics. Leave it up to them. But don't
Be
pay them.
creative.
Be creative. What do
You
you
know-
got?
One interesting way that I've seen things run that was a little bit different from other shows that I had been on is on the Midnight Gospel. We would
Gosh, I love
board
the Midnight
something.
Gospel.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you worked
oh,
on it.
thank you so
I
much.
know.
Uh,
I just have to say I loved it.
No, thank you.
Oh, so goddamn
we
good.
would board things, and even though the boards were clean, depending on like how much we wanted to make it clean, during every step of the process, they were like, "We want you guys to add things that you think is fun." So they would add tons of fun new design stuff. They even in animation that they would like maybe I drew like 4 zombies coming in. Sometimes the animators would have like a zombie swings in from the roof from the intestines coming out of their belly, and there's and like and they and so like the zombies walk in doesn't have to be 4 regular all the same zombies walk in. It's like do 2 of them trip over each other? Does one walk in funny? Is one and they were encouraged to do that and to add things like that, and the designers, it was the same way. The backgrounds were like putting little things in the backgrounds all the time, and I could tell everyone had more fun, and it turned into a visually interesting show where you can tell when people in a crew have fun, I think.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I think I agree. I feel like when there's a more, if you're able to be less precious with an idea, if you have like an idea and you're like, okay, these are the grand themes, but I am willing to let go of like 40% of the creative like oversight so people can have fun, I think it makes it a lot better for everyone on the crew.
I think that
I
goes
completely
back
agree.
a little bit. I think that goes back a little bit to that conversation we were having before about uh, how much like when we work on a show, what is it what's that thing that's like, even though we're working on it, I wish I was working on my own stuff versus
Yeah.
like what is it about our egos that make it feel like this show only has 30% of my true me in it, and I'm sacrificing the rest, and I need what I do to be 100, like versus a moment like that where say maybe Pendleton Ward is able to say, hey, like this is a show that we're all making, you have fun and put your own things in it, and I'm going to take a step back a little bit and let you guys have fun, even though this scene isn't what I had normally thought it was going to be. You guys did some crazy stuff here, and I love it. And like it doesn't have to be. I just think it's sort of an interesting thing to think about. Like, what is it that makes us feel like we need to put all of ourselves in it versus, hey, like, I'm stepping back and this is a team collaborating on a thing and just trying to make this beautiful thing, and I can feel just as happy about doing that.
And that's the difference
It
between
is.
hiring a robot or a crew of people.
Yep.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true. And
I
it's
think
also
it's
worth saying.
Mm-mm.
Sorry. You please go.
Oh,
Please go.
no, I was just gonna say, I think it's just so important to let the people that you bring onto your shows and films tell their stories. Like you have to, because that will so greatly influence the work that you're trying to showcase. You can still have your very important A to B, A to Z all fleshed out, but the intricacies of those of whatever happens in your story is still up in the air, right? Like you know what's going to happen, but you don't know how. And so I've watched, and I'll tote back to Everett Downing and Patrick Harpin for My Dad the Bounty Hunter, and also my own director Alice, just the way that they listen and ask and let others take the reign and talk and take photos of like things that they're inspired by or showcase things that they're inspired by, and the way that they get to know that their teammates, it genuinely becomes a friendship more than just I am your boss. It's more of like, oh my god, we're gonna work on this together and we're gonna make a baby and it's gonna be awesome and we're all gonna be parents. It's gonna be great. You can feel that difference
Yeah,
without
it's true.
even, saying anything. It's all about the camaraderie. It's all about how, your leadership outlines the morale of your group, and if they do it right from the get-go, you're going to have a beautiful fucking time. And I think
Yeah.
everybody deserves to
I
that.
also think having a flexibility,
Yes.
of what is right. There
Mhm.
is more than one version of what is right,
Mhm.
and I think that also, being a good director, thinking about that helps. Like, there's more than one right way to do it,
Yes.
and if you're working with more than one person, there might be a combination of parallel realities that are all right and cool.
Mm.
But if you're really particular about it, then everyone's going to be miserable because no
Yeah.
one's you. No
Yeah.
one's you. No one could read your minds.
Yeah.
That is so true. That's something that has been really fun with pitching. I've been thoroughly enjoying it, and because it's like you're getting notes back about things that may or may not work as you continue to pitch. And I think a lot of people can see something that I worry about with the new generation of artists that are going to be coming into the industry, especially when they don't have the wherewithal to know exactly what it's like getting feedback back. I'm concerned
Oh.
that
Oh no.
people are going to see getting feedback as being combative, having to be extremely defensive, having to get feedback from a production assistant or a production coordinator when they're not even artists, like that kind of thing.
Mm.
And I just want to tell people feedback is the best thing that you could ever get because it helps move your assignment forward. And it's like getting feedback for pitching and stuff has been so fun because it's opened my eyes to what collaboration can actually look like with your bosses and
Mm.
how fun that can be. Like if you do it right, everybody gets what they want. You may not get everything that you want, but if you do it right, regardless on what kind of film or show you're on, you're going to see your imprint on the character design that you worked on, or the scene that you boarded, or the background that you helped to brainstorm. I think that if a team is run well, and if it's run smartly, everyone will see their work in this on the screen in the final in the final end. Even if it's I designed a puffer jacket for this character, and that actual puffer jacket design doesn't end up on screen, but that character is in a bigger top thing. And I'm like, oh shit, nice. My decision making led to that decision making, and so it's a win-win situation for everybody. And
Coat big. I said
big.
coat big.
Big. The bigger the better. Yes.
Also, people that give you notes that aren't artists are representative of the opinion of non-artists who are going to be taking in your content everywhere. So, like,
Yes.
if someone who is on your production says something that, like, just looking at this, it looks like this, and you're like, no, it doesn't look like this. Like, more than likely, if you put that on TV, a bunch of normal ass people are going to be like, it looks like this.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. Gosh. Oh my goodness. Okay, ask me more questions. This is fun. And you guys left me. I'm on page 3 still, and y'all left me.
You always have time to catch up. Yeah, we can. You know what? I think that's a good time for us to kind of go into our patron questions. We have.
Are there any questions for me? Do people like me enough to ask me questions?
Oh yeah. They've asked questions.
Do you guys ever bring guests on for second episodes? Because can I come back?
You know what? We've had this conversation with a couple of guests, and I would love to do that. There's just so many people we want to interview, but that would be so fun.
But we can just hang out and draw if you want.
Yeah,
just like hang out and draw.
At one point before quarantine, we used to have like 30 people come out on a night, and it was so cool to have it was so cool to have new people in the industry, like intermingling with industry professionals. And in my opinion, those kind of relationships are I think it's important for. I think that it's a symbiotic relationship where the new people need experience, mentorship, and teaching, and old people need life. like we need to be reminded that this is an exciting thing that people are excited about, and be reminded of that feeling of when we first got into it, like the young people bring that grind set that they're so psyched to be doing this, and then the jaded fucks out there that have so much experience to teach, they can. So I love creating spaces like that where we were talking about Pendleton Ward before. There was a time when there was people who had never worked in the animation industry. They were sitting at a table, and Penn had come, and he was just sitting there drawing on sticky notes, and people were talking, and like it's just a casual thing, and you realize that we're all just artists. We're just in it. It's like we're all just artists in like various snapshots of future, present, or past, like.
Yes.
As far as professional growth or whatever,
That's so true. That is cool. That's cool that you were also just kind of like inviting across like generation of artists and stuff, because I feel like it's easy to just kind of stick to our circle. So like that's the cool part about
something pretty amazing happened a couple of months ago over the summertime. I don't know if you guys saw it. I'll find a photo and I'll shove it on here. There was a day called A Great Day in Animation, and it was this fabulous, gorgeous day curated by Marlon West. Shout out to Marlon. I don't know if you hear this. I love you. He's I believe he's head of VFX over at Disney Feature, and is just one of the most beautiful souls in the industry, and older generation as well. And he had wanted to recreate this beautiful photo called A Great Day in Harlem, and I'll also I'll have both of those photos on here so you guys can see it. And it was the coolest day of my life because it was exactly what you were just talking about. It was a representation of the past, the present, and the future talent in the industry so far as the Black artists in this industry. And we had talent as old as the Disney era, as when he was alive. We got to meet folks from that era, and as young as myself and Kristen Garland, and then everybody else in the middle. And it was a meeting of the generations, and it was so humbling and awesome to see just this space of Black creatives, and just how far we've come, but how far we have to go. And that's a whole completely different topic. But what you were just talking about completely reminded me of that day, and I'll hold that day in my heart for a very long time.
And you know that if you're creating spaces like that or moments like that, like you're creating those moments for other people. Like you're passing it,
10 out of
it
10.
down the line too.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Gosh, isn't that awesome? Here, I'm gonna make a page 5. I'm gonna
Yeah. I found
ditch you guys.
I found some I found some
Oh, you
questions
found your
for
questions. You love questions. Oh, you're gonna love this. You love
Yeah.
questions, Brie.
From
I
our
like questions.
You love questions.
I like questions.
from our patron Joe Benson, if you had to combine and pitch a show based off an American and Japanese animated show, what would that show be?
How dare you know what I'm already doing? Well, I would. Oh boy, how fun is that to answer? So for me, a lot of my inspirations as a director come from French animation, French and Japanese mixed together, and I would create a mixture of slice of life, because I love slice of life. It takes us back to those days where we need to slow down, and it is just such a subvert from high action adventure, which are so well loved, but slice of life is something so special and quiet and easy and like comforting and soothing. So that's definitely at the top of my list. But on the other hand, because I just love it all, it would be that fast paced, high action, kill a kill, mixed with like just my own shit and themes of like queer romance and deep space, because I have an obsession with the cosmos. And so that's what I would, yeah, if you ever see me directing, all of that is exactly what it would be. Yeah. Did I answer that question? Did I answer that question properly?
I think that was great. Because I feel like, I don't know, I get a pretty good idea from what you were pitching as like, you would have these characters that do have to fight, but also you show like the mundane of what life also is. I think that's really cool.
I think what's also really important too is to showcase. So like I'm from the Bronx, and I would represent that. I would want to showcase the what where I grew up kind of looks like in animation. Like when Spiderverse came out, I was really excited about the background and environments, and I was just like, oh my god, I know where this is. This looks so familiar to me. And that is so exciting to see, even if it's just a fantasy version of where you're from, to have that on screen. And as a person of color, I really want to put forth, strong female, strong gender neutral leads on screen of color, especially Black characters. And for everything I create, everything I direct, that's exactly what's going to happen. And so you can always expect that out of me, to like tell those like really deep introspective stories, like parental stuff, like parents apologizing to their children, because that is extraordinarily important and we don't see that very often. Yeah, those things. I'd really harken back to like my own upbringing and my own childhood and my teenhood and put those in stories, because that shit's relatable AF. I think our generation grew up on Ghibli, and instead of trying to recreate that, I would love to give the new generation something, that is our Ghibli, if that makes any sense. Something that they can turn to when the days that they're not feeling so hot or, sad or lonely or whatever. That's where my heart's at. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. And I think a follow-up question to that from our patron Kitty Fries, if you had the chance to reboot an old show, which one would it be? An old show that kind of hits all of these like tones like marks that you just like were telling us about.
This is obscure as all hell. There's two shows that I would redo. One would be Revolutionary Girl Utena,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. When you were talking about all
I
your,
would redo
yeah,
Utena.
yeah.
And then the other would be, oh Jesus, Sea Prince and Fire Child, I think is what it is. Yeah, that might be it. I would redo those because I love romance. My gosh, and I love bittersweet, heartbreaking romance. I would redo Sea Prince and Fire Child because I would definitely want to make people cry and like sob and break their hearts over these two children falling in love and then dying in the end. But I think I love to, if you're designing a beautiful environment, if you've got this team of background and environment designers and you're not using them to their greatest extent, like you're flourishing out this world but you barely show it, that's such a disservice to them. And so for me, I would love to expand on these films so like you could see more of the culture that we've come up with in the brainstorming process. You could see more of the background designs that's been painted or created painstakingly. Like I would expand upon those things. Sure, stories could change, but it's the visuals that I would change the most so that we get more of that uh satiation, yes, from watching something. That's what I would do. Yeah. And then I'd bump up the costumes, of course. Of course, I'd bump up the costumes.
Of course. Ooh, we have a question on Twitter from @hasdraws. They saw your tweet about Netflix getting traction. I love the way you
Oh yeah, I said I would answer this one.
And would like to hear what has been your best or one of the best experience in the industry.
Yeah, honestly, almost every experience that I've had in this industry has been jaw-droppingly awesome. I've only had two experiences that I wish I could not have gone through, but also I'm okay with having gone through them because I learned a lesson. So that's fine. But I think my favorite experience would have to have been working on steps. And I think some people would think I'd say Spiderverse, and obviously that's at the top, but working on steps at Netflix would definitely be it for me because that was the first film that I went on where I was one of the first three artists. We started right on the first day of pre-production, and that is so important to me and has such a deep place in my heart because that team is family to me, you know. I was asked a couple of like 2 months ago why I went back to Netflix for, a couple of weeks after everything that I'd said about, not going back to Netflix until I trusted them again. It's because that team asked me to come back. There's some teams that you would die for. And that team and my time on that team, I hold to a pedestal. Yeah. Spider-Verse is second next, of course. Of course, of course.
Yeah, I think the teams is really what makes animation special.
Yeah, yeah. I also and I would say Spider-Verse not because of what the property is. Obviously, that's a given. It's super dope, but it's because of the people that I worked with. And the team, Sticky Stoop, I know you're listening. I love you. The small character team that I'd worked with, was just my favorite team in the entire world, I think. I got to work with some of the most beautiful people, Joe, Jesus, Chris, Evan, yes. Everyone on that team, from the character modeler to the suit designer to the sketching artists and all of that. I learned so much from all of them. And when I had initially gotten hired, there was this moment of holy crap, look at this team. You've got fucking legends on this team. What do you need me for? And actually working on Spider-Verse taught me a very important lesson of it doesn't matter if you're going to work with someone who's been in the industry for 30 years or 10 years or 2 years. Everybody has something very important to bring on that team. And you can do something that someone who's been on in the industry for 30 years can't do, and vice versa. And that's completely okay. You're not brought on there to be competitive. You're brought on there to work together and learn from each other. And that's what Spider-Verse taught me. And that was such a valuable lesson. And yeah, and seeing all of my boys at Lightbox Expo and all of the selfies that we took together was just such a blast. I'll share that as well. You guys gotta see these selfies. Holy crap.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah, yeah. I think that's also something that's really fun, being able to go through these animation events and like seeing all your old like crewmates and stuff and hanging out.
Yes.
I think that's really
yes. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that question. That kind of question always makes me think of like why I choose to love certain experiences on certain films more than others. It's not that it was a bad experience, it's just they taught me different things, you know?
Right, yeah. I have this question from Instagram. It's about Clone High, so it's pretty interesting because then you can talk a little bit more about what you did on Clone High. It's from at Onyx underscore Smomix. What was it like to Smomix? What was it like to design new Clone High characters? Did you design new characters, or were you
just
doing
one?
this?
I just helped with one. Yeah. Ooh, did that give away too much?
No, I don't think. No, it's interesting because I didn't know if you worked. If
There's a
you
character in the show.
Character in the show.
Spoiler alert. There's a character.
Because design sometimes does post boards or pre boards, so you have like two sides of design. And I didn't know if you did the development side of design or if you did the post board, which is like taking from the boards like the.
Oh no, I didn't take from the boards at all. Yeah. No, yeah, they gave me God, I really enjoyed helping. And it was such a fun team. Hi Carrie. Carrie Yost in the house. Let's see. So they pulled me on and they were like, this is the person that we want to design this character based off of. And then we had some talks and stuff like that. And then they just let me have fun.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's all it was. It was actually quite simple. And it was a super short stint, 3 weeks, if that, but it was awesome, you know? And then I got a crew gift last year and I saw the character on it that I'd helped out with. And I was just like, I work in this industry. There it is.
Wow, that is so cool.
Because my God, dude, it takes 10 years for you to see the stuff that you've put into the industry, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, when I was in Spiderverse too, it was before the pandemic. It was in 2019. So
was it?
Yeah, it hasn't come out yet, but soon. Yeah, it was like that long ago.
Gosh. Okay, but like, what are you gonna wear to the premiere party?
We'll see. I need to know. That's so funny. I'm so boring. I'll just wear a hoodie.
You be boring.
I'll just wear a comfy outfit.
We have to dress to impress. I made this. You should let me make you something. You should let me dress you.
Honestly, that would be a dream. Honestly, if you wanted to, I would love that.
And then do a before and after TikTok.
Yeah, I'm so down. I've never had anyone offer me.
I think that's called couture.
Offer me couture. I'm down. Wow, this is so crazy. I'm so excited for this.
Actually, that's right. How was Spider-Verse for you in terms of like what process did you get onto the film and like was there anything that you learned coming off of it? Were there any like preconceptions that you had beforehand and then what you left with?
I think it taught me a lot in terms of kind of like the movie structure because like came from TV. I think also like always I'm a very cartoony person in my work. I just came off Thundercats Roar, which was extremely cartoony, and which I loved. Thundercats Roar was probably one of the most fun show I ever worked on. But so, and then Spiderverse is very different. Spiderverse is very grounded. It's very realistic acting. So for me, like I had to unlearn a lot of things that I came onto the show with. But like there was like a lot of great people. Everyone was like really talented. And I met some great artists like Winton, who we're gonna have on the show next week.
Exciting! I don't know you, but hello.
It's like it's really fun. Yeah, meeting new people, just kind of like, and seeing how movies are made, because I never worked on a movie before, so I was like, oh, that's how they do it. But yeah, it was very early too. It was very early. It was very, very, very early. So I'm excited to see what it's probably completely different now. I'm really excited to see what it's like now.
I think it's different even after I left too, actually.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how feature is, man.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You could work on the beginning of feature, and then like 3 years later, like it's just nothing. Just everything is completely different. Yeah.
What is this? I didn't work on this.
Yeah, this is a different movie.
There is one drawing I did, though. We'll see whether or not it will end up in the final movie. But there was one drawing I did that might make it to the final movie, but we'll see.
Yes!
The single one.
Gosh, honestly, I feel like there's one or two designs that I think might have influenced the designs afterwards. That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm also hoping to, because I handed my work in for the book. So I'm like desperate. Like, please! I swear you better end up in this damn book. Oh my gosh. We deserve to be in that book, don't we?
Oh, yes. Well, we'll see.
Yes.
No, it was fun to like learn how the sausage is made.
Are there more questions for me, please?
I think we went through all the questions.
I thought you were gonna be like, this is bullshit. I thought I was gonna get more questions. I love questions.
That would have been so funny.
I do. I'll take whatever comes my way.
We have to keep making up new questions so you feel validated. Like we're like making them up on the spot. Like Brie's so mad right now. We have to keep. Oh, I found another audience question.
How dare there not be any more for me? Well, my question for you guys, what's your trajectory looking like?
Getting jettisoned into space for this gay, sexy, violent space origins story. No, V, why don't I go first? Yeah, I talked too much this episode.
I don't feel like you did. I feel like that was a a good amount
of talking. Like I've just been listening to two awesome people just talk, and it's been awesome for me.
I think honestly, your story about going to fashion school was super great, and like also how you went to like all the different productions. And I think we had like some really good conversation. But trajectory wise, I don't know. I don't know, you guys. I'm at a moment where I'm like, I think I kind of want to draw like I want to draw like a full comic. I want to really finish one comic. I'm also working on a short for Cartoon Network right now, which is really fun. So I really want to work on that, and I don't know. I like writing. I also started writing for a show, so it's just kind of like starting to go more in that like.
Congratulations!
Yeah,
thank you. It's
amazing.
It's really fun, and it's also really scary because
is it in a good way?
In a good way. It like kind of.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, because I don't know. It's so fun trying out. In boards, when you have to pitch something, you have to draw it all out. And then you're
Yes.
like, but then you have a new idea and then you have to draw it all out again. But when you're writing, you can just type it and be like, I could try something different. And then you just delete and you type it again. And it's so fast. And I'm like, this is so nice.
I like the idea of V discovering that she loves writing by her realizing that when she was drawing the boards, she realized that when you put a cool drawing here under the boards, she was like, that's actually my favorite part. I like being able to just add, like, there's a cool drawing and it goes to the right. they run to the right, and then you're like, what if I just take the boards part out?
Yeah.
What if I just don't draw?
Drawing is like, I love drawing so much.
Do
But
you? It doesn't sound like you do.
I do, but I think I like drawing like stuff that's in my head. You know what I mean? Like I like drawing my ideas.
Something I hope to never lose is that when I start directing, I've asked around about this as well, but most of my director friends are not inherently character designers, except for like one or two. Chris Nee is also a character designer. I still want to be a character designer even as I direct. Like I still want to draw. I still want to help out the character team. I still want that, even though I know I'll have obviously such limited time on that. But that is my biggest fear, is actually losing the ability to still design characters.
I think you could still, I don't know. I think you get still to do the fun stuff, which is like the first sketches. For me, that's the most fun part. Is like is doing that very first, like all the doodles. That's when I love drawing. When I get bored with drawing is when I have to do the notes.
Don't get bored.
I get bored. I like to do the first.
What do you think is the most time wasting thing that could happen on a show or a film?
I feel like it's when, for example, someone's like, oh, let's just do the sequence, but in another room. But the new room doesn't change the story. So it's just like you have to redraw a lot, or they're like, what if we put the camera, like, I don't know, in the other way, but it doesn't impact the storytelling? Then I'm like, oh, we're just kind of drawing stuff for, that you're kind of like rendering something for people to check. You know what I mean? Like when they can't. That's where I'm like an AI would be good, because, or like, and then they could check if they want it in the living room or in the bedroom, just for the light or whatever. Because
that's kind of a sexy question.
I know. I heard myself asking it, and then I knew it would be like, ooh, this is
the after hours part of the podcast where we talk about whether we want it in the bedroom or the living room. That's the
wow,
the risque part of boards. But I guess I kind of did a cop-out answer for the trajectory question, so I guess I'll give a little one. I've kind of gone back to, like, how sometimes you worry that like can I still do the thing that I started out doing? For a while I was directing and doing a lot of boards and making less shorts, and recently I've been making an animated short every 2 weeks from start to finish, like writing, boarding, animation. Thank you. And that's been fun, and that is leading to like I've pitched the people who I'm doing that for a TikTok web series, so it'll be like the same, a linear TikTok web series that's like 1 minute shorts. And ultimately, I want to, this year I want to pitch a lot more. I want to get back to writing. I want to get back to pitching. and I wanna take time to work on myself. I'm gonna finish my grammar workbook. I
Fuck
got
yeah.
one of those grammar workbooks because I feel like I've forgotten most of the stuff that
I was
I've
gonna say,
learned
are you
about
bad at the
writing.
grammar?
Well, I'm not. So my partner is a technical writer. She
Mm.
writes grants, and
Mm.
she's usually my editor. And one time she was like, "You write kind of like a little kid."
Oh
And
no,
she
the
didn't mean
insultable
for it to be.
insult.
She didn't mean for it to be an insult. She was just she was trying to express that I write the way I talk, and
Yeah.
the way I talk isn't grammatically correct.
Mm,
And
mm.
and the thing is, me writing the way I talk goes it's great for writing most scripts. I'm
Mhm,
good at writing dialogue
Mhm.
because I
mhm,
can write how people talk,
mhm,
but it's not so good if I'm writing a novel.
mhm,
Um
Yeah.
mhm.
uh
But for a pitch Bible, it's good though. I feel like when I read your pitches, it's fun because I can hear it in my
Thanks.
head. You know what I mean? Whereas I feel
Thank
like
you.
when you read scripts or pitches, you want it to feel kind of casual. Whereas
Kind
I
of
guess,
fun, casual, yeah.
yeah, but I guess when you get to those parts where it's like you're like, and
Yeah.
this is why this is a show that you need, and I am serious
Mm.
now, and I can talk like a business person, I guess.
Yeah.
I
But
find,
I've been
mm,
yeah,
mm.
Shaka,
No,
go ahead.
no, please, please.
No, I was just saying I've been reading books on writing and just working on get because I can draw. I can draw for days and I can world build and I can write to a certain extent. Like I'm strong at writing shorts. I'm strong at writing the things that I as a lone animator have been able to do for my whole life. But when it comes to writing longer form stuff, I'm a little less experienced. And so I've been working on trying to level up
Mm.
that stuff and I'd love to dedicate more time to that and then write some scripts and get to pitching this year. And so that's all I was going
Mm.
to say. You can go ahead.
Something I really like to do when I am pitching or like writing out my my Bible or my presentation, I'll speak into my recording software and I'll talk. I'll just speak like I am talking to you guys, trying to get the most
Mm.
authentic way that I can convey my message without it being
Mhm.
too much, without it, breaking the character of who I am as a person, because I never want, I'm so anti code switching, it's not even funny. So even on those more serious notes, I'm still just like, I'm just an idiot trying to sell you my idea.
Oh
Buy
no.
it. Take my stories and make something out of it. Give me an award for nothing. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I think the most important thing is your voice. I feel like I think me personally, I don't mind if you write like a wee little bab, but that's fine. That's
Oh,
just me.
well, thank you.
That's the end of this creative block. Brie, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
Thanks for tolerating me. This was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks to our listeners. Follow us on Twitter at CRTV. That's a little short, kind of catchy way of writing creative block, where we can ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor Clemens for editing the podcast and Malik for helping us produce the show.
If you love our show, then support us on Patreon. It helps us pay for things like the Google Drive, Zoom, and Clemens and Malik. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews as well as bonus episodes and AMA. We do AMA sometimes. It's fun. You should come and hang out. Click the link in the description of this episode. I've been your host, V.
And I was, am, and will continue to be Sean. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.